Welcome back to Beginning Sock Knitting with the Twisted Skein. I'm Amanda Swanson, your host and instructor for this class. First of all, I wanted to apologize. I accidentally deleted the video for the slip stitch heel segment that I had recorded, and so that didn't make it into the final cut. I wanted to explain to you really quickly how I worked this heel. As you can see, it pulls in a lot more. It's got a little bit of a ribbed look to it. And the way that you work this is as you're knitting that heel flap across half your stitches, you're going to start on the right side of your work. You're going to slip the first stitch purlwise, needle tip to needle tip, with your working yarn held behind your needle. And then you're going to knit the second stitch, slip the third stitch the same way as the first, knit the fourth stitch, slip the fifth. So you're slipping every odd numbered stitch straight across purlwise, holding your yarn in back, and then knitting every even stitch. And that's going to create this ridged pattern. You're going to do that every right side row, slip one, knit one, slip one, knit one, all the way across. And when you come to the end of your flap, you're going to turn around, and on the wrong side rows, or the purl side of your work, you're going to slip that first stitch. Again, we're trying to create that slip stitch edge that makes the easy pickup. And then you're going to purl every stitch across the row. You don't slip anything on the wrong side rows of your heel flap. And then you're going to come back, and for the third row, it's going to be exactly the same as the first. You're going to slip the first stitch, knit the second, slip the third stitch, knit the fourth stitch. So you're going to repeat that pattern, and that's what creates these nice columns. And that slipping the stitch with the yarn behind gives a little bit of extra stability to this heel. It doesn't wear through quite as fast, and it helps the sock pull in so that you have a better fit on your heel. All right, and I'll be back in just a minute, and we're going to talk about finishing up our socks, and I'm going to show you two different ways to work your toes. All right, so to figure out where I'm going to start my toe decreases, I went and I made a tracing on cardboard at the foot of the person I'm knitting the sock for. This happens to be for a child, so it looks a little short. And then what I did is I took my ruler, and you'll want to measure from the back of the heel to the longest part of the foot, which is about here. And that's just over 7.5 inches. This is a child size sock. So I then want to measure 1.5 inches from the toe down, and then I drew a line across the foot where that 1.5 inches is. That's how long my toe box is going to be for a child size sock. If you're knitting an adult size sock, you're going to want this to be about 2 inches from the longest part of your foot. And your toe box won't be exactly 2 inches. It should be a little shorter than that, but that'll give you some stretch to give you that negative ease again that we're looking for a nice, well-fitted sock that isn't too bunchy. All right, so then I cut out my cardboard tracing, and I'm going to go ahead and fit it into my sock, which I've knit here. And I want to see that my sock comes down to that line. All right, I want to line the heel up with my decrease stitches in the back of the sock. I can see that those stitches curve around the edge there. I'm going to pull that sock down, turn it over so I can see my line, and I can see that my sock just comes to that line where I'm ready to start the toe decreases. All right, these toe decreases I'm going to start on one side of the sock with the first needle, and then I'll repeat them on the other side. You can start with either the front needle or the back needle. It doesn't really matter, as long as you just work the same number of decreases on each side, because you want to end with the same number of stitches on each side of your sock for grafting. That's right, we're going to learn how to Kitchener. If Kitchenering is not your thing, don't worry, I'll be showing you an alternate sock toe with our other sock that doesn't require grafting. If you've always wanted to learn Kitchenering, this is the traditional method of ending your socks and closing your sock toes, and I will be walking you through that step by step. All right, I'm going to start working my decreases. I knit the first stitch. I'm going to decrease 1 by going slip, slip, knit at the beginning of the needle. I'm going to knit across my sock to the last 3 stitches. This is going to be forming the classic wedge toe, which, as I said, is closed by grafting. Normally, you will work this decrease every other row because you want to make a nice even set of decreases. You don't want this toe to end too soon or get too long and pointy. All right, 3 stitches left. I'm going to do the reverse decrease from what I did before. So I'm going to knit 2 together and knit the last stitch. Okay, I'm going to repeat those decreases on my other needle as well. Knit 1, slip, slip, knit. Try not to split my yarn, and then knit across to the last 3 stitches. Many people find that once they've done the basic toe decreases, they can work out customizing their toes to fit their foot better. Some people have very wide square feet, and they like to leave more stitches in the center of their toe for grafting. Usually you want to have about an inch of stitches on each needle to graft. For my sock, I think that's probably going to be around 10 stitches. Okay, I'm to the end. I'm going to knit 2 together, knit 1. All right, this next round is just going to be knit flat. I'm not going to do any decreases on this round. Okay, and then, as I said, I will probably have about 10 stitches on each needle. Other people may prefer to have 6 if they have very pointed feet. Other people may prefer to have 12 or 14. It's kind of up to you. People also find that they like to vary the decrease rate. If you were to decrease every row, this toe would end very soon and it would be very square. If you were to decrease more slowly, with more rounds in between, you could elongate your toes. Other people will do the decreases every other row for maybe half of their set of decreases, and then they will go ahead and start decreasing every row after that. It's all a little bit personalized as to how you like your socks to fit. And yes, there are people who will make the big toe side of their sock longer so that it comes at an angle and provides more room for their big toe. That is perfectly acceptable as well. As I said, you can really customize this a lot of ways if you like. Okay, I'm just going to finish knitting this row, and then I'm going to work my decrease round again. I will come back once I finish my decreases, and we'll talk about how we're going to close our toes. All right, and I'm back. I've finished my wedge toe decreases. As you can see, I have a nicely angled toe, and I decided on 8 stitches on each needle. That's just over an inch. And we're now ready to start grafting, or Kitchenering as it's called. All right, with the exception of the first 2 stitches on your needle, we're going to pass our working yarn through every stitch on the needle twice. Once we get going, you'll see there's a little rhythm to it. I'm going to start by taking my tapestry needle, which is threaded with the yarn that is still on my sock. I've cut my working yarn. You want at least 3 times the length of the stitches you're going to graft. I'm going to bring that forward under the needles, and I'm going to go through the first stitch on the needle knitwise and slip it off the needle. Okay, and then I'm going to bring that needle through purlwise across the front of the second stitch that was on the front needle. And I'm going to bring it all the way through and pull it up. Okay, now I'm going to switch to the back needle. I'm going to go through the first stitch purlwise and through the second stitch. Let me pull it through here first. Purlwise, and then I'm going to go knitwise through the second stitch and leave that stitch still on the needle. I'm going to pull that up tight. That was the beginning of my Kitchener, and I've pulled the first 2 stitches off the needle, but now I'm going to go through every stitch twice, repeating that pattern. Come under the needle, go through the first stitch knitwise, purl it off the needle. I'm going to go through the second stitch purlwise and leave it on the needle. Switch to the back needle, go through the stitch purlwise, take it off, making sure I'm bringing that yarn under the needle. Go through the second stitch on the needle knitwise and leave it on the needle. I'm going to repeat this for every stitch across the needle till we get to the end. Knit through, pull it off, purl front, leave it on, purl back, take it off, knit back, leave it on. So we go through knit, purl, purl, knit. To the front needle again, gonna knit wise, pull it off, purl wise, leave it on, purl wise, take it off, and knit wise, leave it on. And you'll see I'm not pulling the yarn through every time. I'm sort of shortening my steps so that I make fewer motions while still doing the same technique. And I'm making sure I'm pulling my yarn up enough that I'm getting that toe woven. And basically I am duplicating the tracing I would make if I were knitting these stitches. It's going to look exactly like it was knit when I'm done with it. And that's why it's called grafting. Okay? I'm going to knit wise on that stitch, purl wise through the last stitch here, purl wise through the second stitch on the back needle, knit wise through the last stitch here. Okay? And then I'm just going to slip my needles out. I've only gone through each of those end stitches once. And I'm going to open this toe out. I'm going to put my needle back down. I can see the end of that last stitch right there. I'm going to put my needle down in it and pull my yarn tail down. Let me get inside the sock. And I'm going to pull this to the inside. All right. And you can see I have now grafted my toe shut. I always find it's best to do the grafting when I'm at a place where I can focus and pay attention, because sometimes you get off track if people are talking to you or it's too noisy. But overall, I only had a few stitches to do. It grafted nice and evenly, and as you can see, it looks just like it was knit without any start and finish. All right, I'm going to come back and show you how I do another type of toe decrease that doesn't need grafting, and then we'll weave in our ends. We're almost done. All right, I'm back to the socks on double pointed needles. For this star toe decrease, this is called a star toe, and we're going to decrease evenly in 4 different places on our sock. So you want to have stitches that are in multiples of 4 so that you can decrease evenly all the way around. All right, if you don't have that, in my case, I think I have 44 stitches, so I should be okay. But you can decrease, if you have an even number of stitches, you can decrease 1 extra time on the sides before you get going. All right, this is going to be pretty easy. I'm going to demonstrate how to do this using 5 double pointed needles, but you can also do this on circular needles. If you're working on circular needles, I want you to take your stitch marker and you're going to mark the center. See how I have this on one needle? If I were working on a circular needle, I would put a stitch marker where the center of each needle was, so that I have my sock divided into 4 equal sections. I'm going to end up putting this on 4 different needles. What I'm going to do is pretty easy. I'm going to knit until the last 2 stitches on the needle, and I'm bringing in another needle. This is the same size, it's just a different type of material because I only have 4 of these needles. I'm going to knit until 2 stitches before the end. And then I'm going to knit 2 together. Okay, and I'm going to do that for my next set. This is going to be 11 stitches in each quarter, so I'm going to knit 9 stitches and then knit 2 together again. Eight, 9, knit 2 together. Okay. And then I'm going to pick up my 5th needle. I'm going to knit to the last 2 stitches on this needle and do my knit 2 together again. I'm going to do that a total of 4 times in this round. knit 2 together. Okay, one more needle before I get back to my beginning of the round marker. And you'll see I've moved that marker along as I've worked my foot. Okay, I'm going to work this decrease round where I knit 2 together at the end of every needle, every other round. I want a gradual decrease, and I'm going to repeat these decreases until I only have 2 stitches on each needle. Okay, here's my last needle in the round. Knit to the last 2, knit 2 together. All right, and I'm going to continue. I'm going to knit this next round plain with no decreases, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do those decreases at the end of the needle again on the next round, do a round plain. I'm going to repeat that until I only have 2 stitches on each needle, and then I'm going to come back and show you how we end this toe. And here I've finished doing my 4 evenly spaced decreases every other round, and you can see I have a star toe that I finished here. I'm going to go ahead and take my yarn tail. I'm going to leave enough inches to weave in. It's about 5 or 6. And I'm going to take this off my stitches. I'm down to 8. That's 2 on each of my double pointed needles. I'm going to take this tail and thread it onto a tapestry needle and go ahead and take these stitches off. Let me find where my beginning of round is. It's right here. So I'm going to come back this way through my stitches. Make sure I'm not twisting anything as I do this. That's 4 out of 8 stitches. Gotta get hung up on my double points here. And 8. All right, now that I've run my needle through all those stitches, I'm going to go ahead and draw them up tight. Okay. Make sure that's spread out. I like to take a couple of stitches, usually about 4 every 2 stitches, to tighten that end up so it doesn't come undone. Just through there, and one more. Okay, and I've got a nice tight star toe, no kitchen ring required, and then all I need to do is run this needle to the inside and we're ready to weave in our ends. This is going to be the same anywhere on your sock you do this. I like to weave in my ends not on the heel side of my sock but up on the top of the toe. I fear there's a little more space there. Nobody wants to walk on that little extra bump of your tail where it's woven in. So I like to run my stitches up here. And then I'm just going to follow the pattern of the stitches here. If I come through here, in and out. You'll see it's exactly copying where the yarns worked before. Come down here. I like to do this over a couple of rows, at least over 3 stitches in each row. I'm going to come down over this way to give myself a little more space to do this. Come down here. All right, and then I'm going to follow it back up here so that I can get 2 full rows going back and forth. And I've got decreases here, so I'm trying to work around those. But usually weaving in over 3 or 4 stitches every 2 rows worth should give you a pretty good amount of space to keep your tail contained. And then I'll just pull that out here and trim it off close. All right, and then after I block that, that end will disappear and you won't see it again. All right, that's weaving in the toes. Let me show you how to weave in on your wedge toe and also on top of your sock. I'm back with my yellow sock. This is the one I did the wedge toe on. I've got it inside out, and you can see that Kitchener stitch just disappears. You don't even see it. Again, I'm going to want to work my weaving in on the top of my sock. So I'm going to come up here, and it'll be a little easier. I don't have decreases right up here to compete, so it'll be a little easier to see where I'm weaving in. Let's get just a little bit closer here. Just duplicating where the yarn runs. I'm going to come down here. You have to be careful to stay on top of this strand of yarn right here because I don't want to see this poking through on the other side. I'm following the path of this yarn through here and then back up here. Come around, following it now around here, down under this stitch and under this stitch. Okay, one more row down, well, 2 more rows down. That's what it's going to look like. Because I now want to come back and I'm going to follow my yarn. Oh, one more stitch here. I'm going to follow the yarn around here and back up there. You can see, follow the path right over here. And there. Okay, bring my yarn back up. I'll bring it right back down, right through here. And that's not too much of a bump, and as I said, it'll be on the top of the toe. You don't feel it quite as much. There's a little bit of space often. All right, and that's woven in. Now let's go look at the top of our ribbing. Okay, ribbing is here, and because of the cast on, you always have this little jog that happens. I'm going to go ahead and use my tail to close that up and then weave in the yarn. And weaving in on ribbing is always super easy. So the thing you want to do is you want to close that gap. So I follow my stitches back. It looks like my first stitch is right here. And I just want to make sure I go through both legs and come back around through both legs of the next stitch that I just came out of here. And that pulls it up nicely. And then I'm just going to take my yarn down to the inside where I'm going to weave in my ends. I love to weave in ends in ribbing. It's super easy because all you do is find one of your ribbing rows. You just take your needle, inserting it into my knit stitch here, and I'm just wrapping my needle through the stitches. That's through 3. Turn it around here. And what's very important is that when you weave your ends in ribbing, you don't want to do anything that's going to restrict your ribbing from stretching. So I just spiral my needle through the stitches and pull that in. Make sure I've still got good stretch there. Pull that up. I'm going to follow the stitch through here You can see I'm following this little frown, if you will, around. Come back here, and I'm going to bring it up the other side of that same knit stitch. Just wrapping my needle into the stitch and bringing it out. And I'm going to go not quite all the way to the top this time because I don't want it to show on the edge. So I've come up about 6 stitches, and then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to come back down the next column of stitches. And once I get down there, I'm going to hide this end and it'll be good. Okay, pull that up. I mean, I can see that there's a little bit of extra yarn there, but overall it's really hidden in my ribbing stitch there. Okay, down to the bottom of the ribbing there. I can go ahead and bring this up and over. Just a little bit of quick duplicate stitch. Follow this stitch around. Follow this stitch around. Making sure I'm coming up as close to just I only want to go under the top strand of yarn there and there. Okay, I'm going to bring my stitch down here, and I'm going to go ahead and snip that end off. All right, all my ends are woven in. My sock is finished. We're going to go ahead and block these and we'll be done. All right, I'm back. I have a basin of room temperature lukewarm water. You don't want your water to be too hot or too cold, just like when we blocked our swatch. You can put a drop of either dish soap or there are some yarn soaps available. Woolite isn't actually really good for yarn. I don't like to use it. I use either Eucalyptus or Soak, but as I said, just a drop of dish soap will do. Dawn, Joy, something like that that's gentle, nothing really abrasive. It's always a good idea. We're not just blocking our socks, we're washing them. You carry your sock around, you work on it, it picks up the oils from your hands and, you know, dust and pet hair, things like that. So it's always a good idea to give it a wash before you use it. I'm going to go ahead and fold my sock, gently set it in the water. Just going to get it wet. I'm not stressing it in any way, just letting it relax. It's going to sit here for 20 minutes and soak. I don't want to wring it or anything like that. And after 20 minutes, I'm going to take my sock out. I'm going to gently press the water out of it. I don't want to encourage it to felt, so I'm just being really gentle here. And then I'm going to spread it out on a clean, dry towel. And I'm going to roll it up in the towel and press the excess water out of it. And you can be kind of firm about this. Once the excess water is pressed out, put it on a dry towel or a blocking mat, and you'll want to lay it out. Now, some people always post pictures of their socks on sock blockers. These are wooden or plastic or metal frames that you can use to stretch your socks out, but you don't really need them. Socks tend to hold their shape pretty well on their own. I like to fold mine neatly in half and just sort of spread them out. Make sure everything looks even. You can kind of pat out any spots that look uneven, but that blocking will help your stitches even out. You can let this dry, just sitting out here for a day or two, and your sock is done. Congratulations, you finished your first sock. Now you can go back and knit a mate for it. You can come back and watch the videos anytime. If you have any questions or if you want to show off your socks, we'd love to hear from you. You can find us either on our Twisted Skein Facebook page, here on YouTube, or you can also ask questions and show off your socks over on our Ravelry thread. You can find us under groups under the Twisted Skein. I hope to see your socks soon. Thank you for knitting with me.